Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. How did you like the guest intro, by the way? I'm not going to be overusing it because it is a little long, but I felt it was definitely worth seeing. This was actually made for me and sent to me by Edward Noad. It's been sitting around on my hard drive for just over a week, and I thought I'd almost forgotten about it because you know what I'm like. So Edward, I'm sorry if you were expecting to see it in last week's Mingles with Jingles. But I remembered just in time, and I thought I'd show it off in this week. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, and by the way, the music is Creative Commons, so no copyright issues there. If anybody at my partner network is listening, it's Creative Commons music, okay? There are no copyright issues. Alright, got that out of the way. What's next? Anyway, yes, Mingles with Jingles. Welcome. Advert free, as always. Thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon. Thank you very much for that. So, where are we going to start this week? I know, game recommendations. This whole game recommendation thing, it works both ways. I mean, I pick up games that I like the look of on, whether it's Steam, Uplay, Origin, whatever. More often than not, they're kind of disappointing. Sometimes they absolutely blow me away. I do a video series about them. For example, Fractured Space by Edgecase Games, or Inside, the side-scrolling platform game that I covered over my Christmas break. And the chances are pretty good that the majority of you would never have heard of these games if I hadn't featured them on YouTube. And I do like to be able to do that, not just bringing you World of Tanks and World of Warships all the time, but stepping outside the comfort zone every now and then and trying something that I really like, and even though it's not what you might be used to, and almost certainly not the sort of game you might think of trying, but a lot of you, judging by the comments, not all of you obviously, but a fair number of you have really enjoyed. Some of those games that I have spotlighted, usually in the Casual Saturday series. Heliborn by Jetcat Games is another good example. That's an example of a game that you probably would have thought, that looks interesting. I'd like to give that a go, but due to the fact that it had zero marketing budget, you probably never would have heard of it unless I'd done a video on it. And then there are other games like Inside, like Plague Inc., which are so far outside of the zone of the normal type of content that I do put up on YouTube, that even if you had heard of them, you would probably have thought, not my sort of thing, and wouldn't have even given them a second look. And yet when I have featured them here on YouTube, they've proven to be surprisingly popular games. Now, this whole game recommendation thing works both ways, because there are any number of games out there that I have played and very much enjoyed, and done videos on, which a lot of you have very much enjoyed, that I would probably never have heard of if you guys hadn't recommended them to me. A good example, for more than one reason, would be Atlantic Fleet by Killerfish Games, which at its heart is a fairly simple game, but it recreates in surprising detail, despite the simplicity of the game engine, because it was originally developed as a mobile game, but is also available on Steam, and recreates in surprising detail some of the iconic battles of World War II, naval battles that is. Which also had a very, very welcome side effect, because Killerfish Games, the developers of Atlantic Fleet, are also the developers of Cold Waters. So if you hadn't recommended Atlantic Fleet to me, and I hadn't eagerly been following Atlantic Fleet's webpage for news of any further development on the game, or any downloadable content and mission packs for example, I probably would never have heard that Killerfish Games' next project was going to be a Cold War submarine simulator called Cold Waters. So you guys are basically directly responsible. Thanks to recommending Atlantic Fleet to me, you're more or less directly responsible for the Cold Waters playlist that I also do. And then of course, there's Subnautica. Now, unlike Atlantic Fleet, I had actually heard of Subnautica, but, well, the Steam page doesn't do a particularly good job of marketing and explaining what the game's about, and I didn't really get it. And so, because the Steam page for Subnautica was kind of uninspiring, I didn't really bother checking out any other YouTube videos on it. And so the game itself it appeared on my radar, but that's about as far as it went. And yet you lot kept saying, in video after video after video, down there in the comments, Jingles, you've got to take a look at Subnautica. And I eventually gave in, and oh boy am I glad I did. That is one of the best games I have ever played. And I would almost certainly have never bothered with Subnautica if it hadn't been for your persistence in the comments of my other videos saying, Jingles, give it a go, you won't regret it. And of course, I did give it a go, and I definitely did not regret it. I think Subnautica is one of the best games I've ever played. So, even though I'm not replying to the comments in my videos, and I've said this before, but I am reading them all, and I am seeing these recommendations that you're making. And there have been a couple of other games that I keep seeing popping up as recommendations in the comments of previous videos. Sea of Thieves, for example. I have to admit, it does look kind of fun. For those of you who don't know what Sea of Thieves is, it's coming out... It's not on Steam. It's the Windows App Store only, or Xbox One. And basically it's a pirate simulator. But you can play it alone if you want to, but you're kind of missing the point. It's a multiplayer, co-op, and competitive pirate simulator. And it does kind of look like fun, but at the same time, it looks like it might get a bit repetitive after a while. And I've kind of resisted pre-ordering it, but eventually, based in no small part on your recommendations, I finally went ahead and bought it. And, well, you can't actually play it for another day. But it looks like the kind of thing that would be fun to live stream. There are some other games that have been popping up as recommendations in the comments of previous videos. A number of you recommended that I take a look at Kingdom Come Deliverance, and again, this is another game I would probably never have heard of if you guys hadn't recommended it. And I'm pretty sure that when I went to Edingham Castle to have a go of Total War Saga's Throne of Britannia, that Lindy Beige also recommended this game because of the historical accuracy. I think the best way to describe Kingdom Come Deliverance would be, imagine The Witcher, that kind of open world role-playing game, but without all of the supernatural elements. Instead, it's firmly rooted in 15th, 14th century history, set in Bohemia. And I have actually gotten it, downloaded it, and played it. And I like it. I do like it a lot. I like the sort of gritty realism of the whole medieval, well, everything in it. Unlikely to be doing a video series on it anytime soon, however. I'm going to wait for the developers to work all of the bugs out of it first, because at the moment it's borderline unplayable. At the very least, make the sound work. That would be a good start. But it definitely has potential, and it's definitely something I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. And when it's in a playable state, I may start doing a video series on it. So that's another game that I would almost certainly never have looked at if I hadn't had it recommended to me by so many of you guys, both in the comments and in real life. So yes, I am regularly checking the comments of all of the videos that I upload, amongst other things to see what sort of things you'd like to see me playing. And when I see a lot of people recommending a game, I'll certainly at least check it out. And because I am checking the comments and, amongst other things, looking for various different recommendations every day in every video I upload, I start to see patterns emerging. And sometimes those patterns start to make me a little bit suspicious. My spider sense starts tingling when I see the same name every day in the comments of every video I've uploaded, saying exactly the same thing. Great video, Jingles. Have you considered checking out insert name of game here on a World of Tanks video? And then the next day in a Subnautica video, same person, same comment. Great video, Jingles. Have you considered checking out insert name of game here? And then the next day in a World of Warships video. And so on, and so on, and so on. No variation in the comments, never has anything else to say other than, have you considered checking out insert name of game here? So you click on their name and you go to their YouTube page. And lo and behold, they're not subscribed to anybody, they're not following anybody, they have never uploaded a video of themselves, and they don't have any liked videos. They're a completely blank YouTube account. It's almost as if somebody has created a throwaway YouTube account purely for the purposes of going around other YouTube videos and cutting and pasting, great video, have you considered checking out insert name of game here? So I thought I'd bring this up in Mingles with Jingles for a couple of reasons. First, as if there was, still any doubt, to prove that I do read the recommendations and the comments in all of my YouTube videos. And secondly, you're going to have to try harder than that. I've got no problem with people making recommendations. Some of the best games I've ever played have been because you guys have made these recommendations of games that you love, but this isn't somebody recommending a game that they love. At best, this is somebody working for the marketing department of a game, and at worst, it's just a bot. You're going to have to do better than that, guys. If anything, this kind of cheap and shoddy marketing is counterproductive, because if the only reason that I've even heard of the game in question is because some bot is spamming the comments section of my YouTube videos with you might want to check this game out, cut and paste, that tells me straight away that none of you guys, my audience, have A, heard of the game, or B, care enough about it to make your own recommendation. I mean, if your game can't even inspire one single real person to give it a recommendation, why the hell should I care? So, by all means, continue spamming my videos with the same cut and paste comment every day. All you're doing is ensuring that I am never even going to give your game so much as the time of day. Oh, and while we're on the subject, on a related issue, to the person, you know who you are, who has had nothing better to say in the last 32 videos that I've uploaded, other than Jingles, please play Lone Echo again, attempt number 1, and then the following day, Jingles, please play Lone Echo again, attempt number 2, all the way up to attempt number 32. Pay attention! I said in last week's episode of Mingles with Jingles that as soon as I'd finished doing Subnautica, I was going to get started on the Lone Echo playthrough again. You're clearly not watching the videos that you're making these comments in, otherwise you would have stopped a week ago. So, which when you think about it means that I've just completely wasted the last 30 seconds telling you to stop, because you're probably not even watching this video either, and yet I'll guarantee somewhere down in the comments of this video I'll see Jingles, please play Lone Echo again, attempt number 33. So, to everybody else who has been eagerly awaiting the return of the Lone Echo videos, don't worry. Despite this jackass, because he has really been pissing me off, I am going to be doing Lone Echo again. But despite this guy, not because of him. Oh, and I have checked his account. He's not a bot. He's actually a real person. He just really, really liked the Lone Echo video series. But do keep those recommendations coming in, the rest of you. You know, those of you who are actually real people, as well as the usual comments, because I do read all the comments, and you never know. I might see something I like. Well, anyway. The next thing that I wanted to talk about this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles is, well, it's specifically to do with World of Warships, but in general, it's related to game design as a whole. And the reason I want to talk about this now is because, well, last week I watched a very, very interesting World of Warships video from Flamu. I'll put a link down below in the video description to the video that I'm talking about, because he goes into the whole subject in much greater detail than I'm going to. But I just wanted to talk about some of the major points that he raised, which were very, very interesting and really, well, shouldn't have needed to be pointed out, and yet they did. So we're going to see what you think as well. And I do encourage you to go and watch Flamu's video anyway, because he does make some very good points, and he makes them in a very, very simple and easy to understand manner. But what it boils down to is this: reinforcing positive behaviour in games, and discouraging negative behaviour in games. If you as a games designer think that your people should be playing your game in a certain way, there's no way you can make a player do that. If somebody wants to camp at the back of the map, in a battleship for example, missing every shot they fire from a range of 20 kilometres until they're the last one left alive on their team with their health bar full and all of their damaged repair consumables untouched. If a player's determined to do that, there's very little that you as a game developer can do to change their mind. But there are ways and means of encouraging players to play the game in the way that it's supposed to be played. And you do this by giving positive feedback to the player and rewarding the player when they do something good, and negative feedback and possibly also penalising the player when they do something bad. Now, the most obvious and dramatic examples of this sort of thing could be that if you're doing something wrong and you continue to do something wrong, you get your ship, or your tank, or your aircraft, or whatever blown out from under you, and it's game over. And that's a pretty solid way of telling somebody that they probably were doing something wrong. Another example could be the team damage reflection system in World of Warships, where if you've done enough damage to your team consistently over a long enough period of time, any damage that you do to your team starts getting reflected back to you. So there's an example both of negative reinforcement and penalising a player for doing something wrong. Now let's take a look at positive reinforcement and rewards for doing positive things. And specifically here we're going to be talking about World of Warships, because it's really in World of Warships where they do appear to have a bit of a problem with this. First, let's talk about the most obvious example of positive reinforcement for doing something right. And the best example of that is what happens when you sink an enemy ship. First thing that happens is you get a voice clip telling you what a great job you just did. And just in case anybody on either team isn't aware of what a great job you just did, they also get notifications telling them exactly how great you are. A message pops up above the minimap telling everybody who just killed who and how they did it. And if they're not paying attention to that, there's also a notification pops up in battle chat telling everybody just how well you've done. On top of that, that number next to your name increments by 1 to give everybody a running total of just how well you're doing. You get all kinds of flashy ribbons pop up on screen. The damage counter in the top right corner of the screen keeps going up and up as a constant reminder of how well you're doing. And depending on how you got the kill or how early you got the kill, you may also receive an achievement, which again is shared with everybody in the game so they all know how well you're doing. Now this is a good thing. This is positive reinforcement. At the end of the day, you're supposed to be sinking enemy ships, and we want to encourage this. And there are any number of different achievements that you can only get for destroying enemy ships. The Arsonist Award, destroy an enemy ship by fire. Close Quarters Expert, destroy an enemy ship with your secondary gun batteries. Devastating Strike, destroy an enemy ship with 1 salvo. Die Hard, destroy an enemy ship by ramming it. Double Strike, destroy 2 enemy ships within 10 seconds of each other. First Blood, be the first person to destroy an enemy ship. Liquidator, destroy an enemy ship by flooding it. Kraken Unleashed, destroy 5 enemy ships. And then there are the damage awards, such as High Caliber. Damage at least 4 enemy ships. Total damage caused must exceed 30% of the total health pool of the entire enemy team. Witherer, cause at least 60,000 hit points of fire and flooding damage to enemy ships. And Confederate, damage at least 6 enemy ships. Damage caused to each ship must exceed 20% of their normal health pool. And the second you earn these achievements, that's when they pop up in battle for everybody to see. So you're constantly and very publicly being reinforced and rewarded, because most of these achievements actually come with rewards attached as well in the form of signal flags. And it's all from doing damage and sinking enemy ships. Now why is this a bad thing? Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And I don't think Flamu in his video which touched on this subject was saying it was a bad thing either. You do of course want to be encouraging players to do as much damage as possible to and sink ships on the enemy team. If they can manage to do that to all of the ships on the enemy team, there's a better than average chance that they're going to win. But that's not the only thing that you need to be doing to win a battle in World of Warships, and the kind of reinforcement and reward that World of Warships is giving for actions that don't necessarily involve damaging and sinking enemy ships, but can be crucial to your team's chances of actually winning the match. Well, they're not quite as obvious as the rewards that you get for doing damage and killing ships. Dreadnought, for example. You want to be encouraging the battleships on your team to actually get in there and tank damage for the squishy cruisers. Dreadnought, receive damage exceeding 120% of your ship's normal hit points from 4 or more enemy ships, and survive the battle. Well, first of all, unlike all of the damage and kill achievements, you don't get this achievement until the battle is over, when everybody's gone home. So it's not quite as dramatic as the Kraken, or the High Caliber, or the Confederate, or the Arsonist Award. Nobody knows what a great job you were doing by tanking all of that damage. you're the only person who is aware that this achievement has actually been earned. Secondly, you have to survive the battle. Now, I understand why they've added this stipulation to the Dreadnought Award. You must survive the battle, because what they don't want to be doing is encouraging people in battleships to just go full speed ahead right down the middle of the map, take fire from every direction, survive long enough to get one shot of their damage repair off, and then die, pointlessly and uselessly. You don't want to be encouraging that, but at the same time, if a battleship, or anybody else for that matter, is only going to be rewarded with the Dreadnought achievement if they survive the battle, it's going to encourage very cautious gameplay. It's the same with the Unsinkable Award. To earn this, you have to receive damage from flooding that exceeds 40% of your ship's normal hit points and survive the battle. Once again, you're going to be the only person who is even aware that you've earned this award. Fireproof, exactly the same, except for fire damage. You have to survive the battle. None of this is really going to encourage people in battleships, heavily armoured ships, from going forward to strategic locations, dominating that location, and tanking hits for the team. Now, you could argue that the positive reinforcement for doing this sort of thing is that you win the game. A well-played battleship who performs these kind of actions for your team can be crucial to your team's chances of winning. But if that battleship gets sunk in the process, and if by some miracle the team managed to not throw the game, the only reward he's going to get is he won the game. But everybody on the winning team gets that reward. The battleship gets nothing special. It's not like World of Tanks, where you at least get a running total down by the paper doll in the bottom left corner of the screen of not just how much damage you've done, but also how much damage you've tanked. You've got no way of knowing of just exactly how good a job of taking hits for the team you're doing in World of Warships until long after the battle's over and you're having a look at the post-battle results screen. Certainly nobody else on your team has any idea of how well you were doing. Of course, sinking enemy ships isn't the only way you can win a game of World of Warships. Control of the capture points is crucial to your team's chances of winning or losing. But what kind of reward do you get for actually capping? Well, you do actually get quite a substantial award for capping in the form of experience and credits earned, but once again, you don't know about that until the game is over. What kind of positive reinforcement does the game give to you at the time you actually successfully steal the flag? You get a ribbon, that's it. If anybody is paying attention, they may notice that one of the flags has changed hands, but the game doesn't bother telling anybody who did it. You don't get the same kind of positive reinforcement and instant reward that you get for the damage and kill achievements. And yet capping is equally as important. And what about scouting? It's exactly the same. In fact, it's even worse. There are no scouting achievements in World of Warships. None whatsoever. So what kind of reward does a good destroyer player get for lighting up half of the enemy team and allowing the rest of his team to farm monstrous amounts of damage and kills? Again, absolutely nothing until the battle's over. And even then, you have to know exactly where to look on the third page of the battle results screen. It's not even on the front page. It's not like World of Tanks, where you've got the patrol duty and scout medals. There's nothing to reward this kind of essential behaviour in World of Warships. And if people who are learning the game aren't being told, you just did a good thing, here's a reward for it. Hey, everybody else, this guy just did a good thing. Check him out. If people who are learning the game are only getting that kind of positive reinforcement for doing damage and sinking enemy ships, then all they are going to be concentrating on doing is doing damage and sinking enemy ships. And while this isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, there's far more that they should be encouraged for doing, and it can actually be detrimental to the team's chances of success. And I'm not just talking here about the no cap kill all mentality that you so often see in World of Tanks. Ships that are on very low health with a slim margin of victory points under their belt, going after more kills when what they should be doing is disengaging, hiding, not dying, and winning on points. But I'm also talking about our personal favourite bugbear, the battleships that like to sit at the back of the map and just farm damage from long range. In particular, since the introduction of the Royal Navy battleships with their monstrous fire chance and monstrous heals, and we're primarily talking about the Tier 7 Premium Nelson and the Tier 9 and 10 non-premium Lion and Conqueror. I've done it myself in the Conqueror, sitting at long range firing nothing but high explosive and racking up ridiculous amounts of damage done and being rewarded in the form of high caliber and arsonist awards, which pop up immediately you achieve them. Everybody gets the notification, check this guy out, he just got high caliber, check this guy out, he just got the arsonist award. But I'm actively hurting my team's chances of winning the game unless I'm also killing enemy ships while I'm doing it. Fire damage is trash. Battleships, hell, anybody with a heal can heal back 100% of fire damage. All of that damage, and it's not just the British battleships. Since they arrived on the scene, you're seeing all kinds of battleships firing nothing but high explosive, and being rewarded for it in the shape of arsonist awards and high caliber awards, when it's absolutely bad. That kind of damage doesn't stick. Enemy battleships, high tier cruisers, British cruisers with their heal, they can all recover all of that kind of damage back. It's great to be doing this kind of damage, but if you're not sinking anything while you're doing it, you're wasting your time. But the game is encouraging this kind of bad gameplay because it keeps handing out arsonist and high caliber awards to players that do it. It's encouraging battleships to be overly cautious because it's not giving them any kind of recognition or reward for it until after the battle's over. Capturing flags has no kind of positive reinforcement other than a ribbon, and you're the only person who knows you received that. Scouting has no form of reward whatsoever other than increased credits and XP earned, but you only find out about that after the battle is over, and you have to go digging in the details amongst a huge array of numbers on the third page of the post-battle results screen to even see that. There are all kinds of things essential to winning a game of World of Warships other than doing damage and sinking enemy ships. But the only time you get a brass marching band rolled out for you when you're playing World of Warships is when you're doing damage and sinking enemy ships. But there's so much more that the game could easily and should be encouraging players to do, particularly important when it comes to those players who are just learning the game, because the emphasis is so heavily on doing damage and getting kills, to the detriment of just about everything else, when that's really only a small part of what it takes to actually be any good in World of Warships. Particularly on those occasions, and they're not as rare as you might think, when not doing damage is precisely what you should be doing. And I'm not just talking about the lone destroyer or cruiser who's the last ship left alive on their team with a 400-point lead and all three of the flags under their control, who goes sailing off looking for something else to kill. There's all kinds of occasions when not pulling the trigger is absolutely the best thing for you to be doing. Hands up anybody who's been in a ship on perilously low health, 3 fires burning, your damage control comes off cooldown, you activate it, kill the fires, you've just gone unspotted, but you're still inside shooting range of that enemy cruiser, and you just can't resist the urge to take one final salvo at him, give your position away, immediately get hit by another high explosive salvo, set on fire again and burn to death. Or you've been shooting at an enemy destroyer in the cap circle, and then he goes unspotted. Your radar's off cooldown, you've got no way of knowing where he is, and then the idiot fires his guns. Why, thank you very much, Mr. Destroyer. Please accept this armor-piercing salvo with my compliments. There's more to winning a game of World of Warships than just doing damage and getting kills. But at the moment, the game is doing a remarkably bad job at reinforcing anything else. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I do recommend you go and check out Flamu's video on this very subject as well, because he raises a couple of points that, well, despite the fact that I've spent a good 20 minutes talking about it, I just didn't really have time to go into. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've given you something to think about. Hope you enjoyed your weekend, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.